If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor, period. If you like your health care plan, you will be able to keep your health care plan, period. No one will take it away, no matter what.
Well, that was President Obama back in 2009, assuring Americans that they will be able to keep their doctors and their health care plans under his health care law. But this week has seen a series of businesses complaining that they simply cannot afford the costs associated with that law, and they are making some cutbacks to provide. One boss who runs dozens of Denny's restaurants says that he will offset costs by adding a 5% surcharge to customers' bills, and he will reduce his employee hours. At Papa John's, the CEO says workers' hours may be cut, since only full-time employees who work 30 or more hours a week have to be covered. So a lot of these employers are saying, okay, guess what? You now don't work 40 hours a week. You work 28 hours a week. At Walmart, employees could pay up to 36% more in their own premiums next year. Some workers now saying that they will instead opt to skip coverage altogether. And that is just the beginning. Take a look at the screen. According to our research team, these companies here have already announced layoffs or say they plan to make cost cuts due to the costs imposed by the president's health care law. Joining me now for a fair and balanced debate, Leslie Marshall, a syndicated radio talk show host and a Fox News contributor. Lars Larson, a syndicated radio host with Compass Media Networks. And full disclosure, Leslie's also married to a doctor, so we don't know whether she is conflicted on this issue, but we've done a lot of Obamacare discussions with this panel. And, you know, now these employers are coming up. The guy who owns the Denny's tells this really, sad story. He says, look, if I had to pay the $5,000 fine per employee that you have to pay if you have more than 50 employees who are full-time and you don't cover them, he says it would cost me $175,000 per restaurant that I own. He said my restaurants don't even make $175,000 a year, so I have no choice but to cut back hours and to pinch the customers a bit more. Your thoughts on it, Lars?
Well, as we heard from Barack Obama a long time ago, elections have consequences. And these days, people are getting pink slips, and they're being told about the bad news on their health care because of those consequences. It's about as simple as that. Now, I know that Leslie thinks that every business owner has a closet full of $100 bills that he just shovels out more when the government demands more. But you know what they've laid out, Megan? They've said the law is that, for instance, Darden Restaurants, one of my favorite examples, is saying it's going to cut its hours. And why? Because a lot of their employees already have health insurance right now, but the Obamacare law says you must increase that from a Chevrolet plan, if you will, to a Cadillac plan. And the restaurant has said, we can't afford a Cadillac plan with the profit margins in restaurants, so we're going to cut people's hours. People are going to lose their jobs, lose their hours, lose the health care they have right now. The president lied when he said you could keep your plan.
Leslie?
Well, the president didn't lie because companies can, regardless of Obamacare, change a company's plan. I own two businesses. Don't have that closet full of money, Lars. I'm going to go look for it later. But let's talk about profits.
Good.
Walmart has had record profits even during the recession. In addition to that, the other day I'm channel surfing, Lars, and do you know who I see? I see the owner of Papa John's standing there with a very big sports figure. And I'm sure that sports figure got 6 or 7 digits for appearing in that commercial. You don't need to cut costs to your employees or pass the cost on to your consumers. As a business owner, when my businesses have had weaker times, I sacrificed my own paycheck to see that my staff got paid.
You are a good person. You are a good person, but we cannot guarantee that all the employers out there are willing to take the hit themselves and not pass it along to. I'm not saying that these are bad guys. I'm just saying that, business is business, I guess they say, Lars.
Well, Megan, I've cut my own paycheck, but to do the same thing Leslie's done. But the problem is in these big companies, it's a profit margin. The average in restaurants is 8%. When Obamacare comes along and says this is the new cost, you have not just owners, but stockholders to answer to. And if you cut the margins far enough, they're not in this for their health. They're in this not to run a charity, but to run a for-profit business that has to return to investors. And if it doesn't, then the business goes away. Ask the folks at Hostess about their Twinkie business. After the unions get done with them, this is a zero-sum game. Money in has to be greater than money out, and Obamacare is forcing a lot of these businesses into a choice they don't want to make, and it's going to hurt employees.
We're going to have a report on the Twinkies right after you guys in our next block, and it's news people need to know. But Leslie, what is this going to do to an already questionable level of support for Obamacare? The country's about split on that now, still. about whether they like it or not. But if you go to Denny's and you see at the bottom of your bill a 5% surcharge to pay for Obamacare, or if you work at Denny's and suddenly you're no longer making 40 hours worth of money, you're making 28 hours a week worth of money, what's that going to do?
Well, first of all, I find it, honestly, as a business owner, disgusting that somebody would politicize and want to blame a political figure, a president or otherwise, in a plan that's not even going to go in effect fully for another more than, a year now. That's absolutely ridiculous. Some of the companies that were posted, they did their layoffs in 2009. Did they have a crystal ball and know the president was going to be reelected? The bottom line here is, if you have the money to spend on an ad, as Papa John's did. And the bottom line is, for Papa John's, let's use that as an example, okay?
Quickly.
Two of their competitors are Domino's and Little Caesars, who are not cutting employees, they're hiring. So maybe his competition's making better pizza. It's just an idea.
All right, guys, I got to leave it at that.
And Denny's has that $2, $4, and $6 menu.
Thanks,
I'd like to
Megan.
chat more, but I have to get to Twinkies, which were the cause of some very rough years for me after I spent summers at Nana's back in the 1970s. I'd come home, my parents would say I was a little unrecognizable. Now someone's cracking down on them, and that's next. Don't go away.